David, how can Democrats better appeal to rural voters? So I don't know if this will be seen as controversial by people in my audience, but a lot of Democratic rhetoric on gun control is completely counterproductive. I am probably right there with 95% of the policy that many Democratic lawmakers want on gun safety. But every time that Democrats campaign on gun control, number one, many sound very uninformed, very, very uninformed, where it's like, do they even understand how guns work? And that's a real problem for a huge part of this country, including rural folks who, remember, rural folks' relationship to guns is very different than that of people who live in cities and suburbs and other places. Number two, I think that the focus needs to better emphasize economic issues in a way that relates to working class, maybe better than sort of like tech millennials. And I think that sometimes the economic rhetoric of Democrats works pretty well for young people and people working in white collar jobs, but who are just not paid that well or with a lot of student debt, but often is not rhetoric and language that's well tuned to more rural folks. And this includes farmers, this includes factory workers, and just every once in a while talking about unions. There's lots of rural folks who have one local employer where you drive 40 miles to a factory, where we might think, being on the left, they should love to hear about how we support unionization. Look at what happened in Alabama with Amazon, where they voted against unionizing. Now, of course, there was a huge propaganda war, and it's a much more complicated thing. But having spoken to people who work in factories in the Midwest and in other places, just talking about unions is not going to do it for Democrats. So I think that it's sort of a three-pronged approach. I think the rhetoric around gun control, around elections, has to be either dropped or fixed. It doesn't mean you stop working on the issues. It just means you stop campaigning so aggressively on that because it turns a lot of those rural folks off. Number two, you figure out how to better talk to farmers and agricultural employers and workers. And number three, you tweak the economic message to not be so union heavy, but more about understanding the plight of a lot of these economically ravaged areas where whether the one employer is unionized or not, and I support the unionization, that's not a path to fixing or dealing with the way that the area has been ravaged big picture, overwhelmingly by the Republican sort of supply side policies that came out of the 1980s. Those would be my three kind of bits of advice for Democrats to better appeal to rural voters. And the truth is that appealing to rural voters in California versus Mississippi are certainly two different things, and the Midwest as a third one. Those are my initial thoughts. Let me know what you think. We have a fantastic bonus show for you today. Get instant access by becoming a member at joinpakman.com. See you then. One of our sponsors is privacy.com. They're giving you $5 when you sign up for their completely free service at privacy.com/Pakman. I've been using Privacy for a little over a year now. You've heard me talk about it before. It's a lifesaver, and here's how it works. Takes just a couple of minutes to set up. Anytime you buy something online or on the phone, instead of actually using your real credit card number, the Privacy app and the browser plugin let you give each company a randomized virtual credit card number that you create out of thin air. It'll even autofill the card number with one click. And the payment is taken out of your checking account without the merchant ever knowing your real information. So this allows you to keep your banking information secure, but also to take control of your finances. You can create up to 12 of these virtual credit cards a month. You can set spending limits. You can freeze them. You can delete them anytime you want. So when you do this, it means you're not going to be charged when you don't want to be, because you can destroy the virtual card number right after using it, which, for instance, I love using free trials because I know I won't be charged when the trial is over if I use a virtual credit card number. You're keeping your identity private by not telling companies who you are. You're keeping your bank or credit card info protected against data breaches and identity theft, and it's free. And like I said, you'll get $5 to spend when you sign up at privacy.com Pakman.